Are you learning CSS Basics for Beginners and want to know all about object-oriented CSS and what reusable CSS classes are and how to use them in real-world projects? If so, you're in the right place. Hi, Martin here from MDP Web Development. Today we'll be working on a project that we'll use as a reference project throughout the Web Development for Beginners playlist. Don't forget to check out the playlist from the start to get a better understanding of HTML and our reference project. It's updated each week with new videos. Be sure to stick around to the end to see how to get the project files on GitHub to use throughout this playlist. I'll link to important videos there also. There's a link in the description down below to the GitHub repository where all the source code is. Let's get started. Before we go on, be sure to watch the Visual Studio Code Editor video. It explains how to get and set up VS Code for use in the Web Development for Beginners playlist. And also watch the video on creating your first web page. I'll link to them in the description below. Here's a summary to get you started. First, create a folder on your desktop and call it Reference Project. Next, download and install Visual Studio Code Editor for your operating system from the link in the description. Open VS Code, then open this folder and create a new file called index.html. In the file content, type an exclamation mark and hit enter. This should create a new standard document for you. Open the file from the desktop folder and it should be a blank page as we have not put any content in it yet. If you get stuck, just watch these videos first. Object-oriented CSS and reusable classes. Object-oriented CSS just means we treat CSS objects like objects where we can have a structure and a skin. And reusable classes are very handy because they promote less code and more efficient use. They encourage code reuse. They reduce file size, you don't need as much CSS, leading to better performance for all websites. And we can separate structure from skin. You can say all H1s I want to be a certain size with padding and margins set. And then a separate class for the skin. Color background we'll say equal to blue or red. And of course you can use that color class on any other element apart from H1s also, promoting code reuse. And also separating containers from content. You can have a container set up, then your content inside it. But you can actually use that container class on any other sort of content you want, promoting code reuse. One very important point here, you can still use IDs for styling. You don't have to use all classes, you can specifically style one thing if you want. We'll use object-oriented CSS and reusable classes to streamline our CSS and make our code more performant. Here we can see on the left we have CSS for H1, H2 and H3. And on the right we can see what the heading 1, 2 and 3 look like. So this code on the left for each H1, H2 and H3 can only be used for those specific headers. And if you want to change it, you have to go into each one and change it. And there's a lot of code on the left just for 3 headers on the right. If we apply object-oriented CSS and code reuse, we can separate out some things that are common. If we look at the left, we can see font size is different because the headings are different sizes. We can see the text color is all set to black, so that's repetitive. We can see the padding is set to 1 EM on them all, so that's repetitive. And even the margin is set to 1 EM, so that's extra lines of code. Not necessary. We can even see text align center is in every single one of them also. So a lot of redundant code. Well, code that's used, but it could be much more efficient. Let's go ahead and take out these common elements and put them into one. We can see here the first heading 1. So on the left, we've taken out those common elements and we can see H1, H2 and H3. They've all share common black color, padding 1 EM and margin 1 EM and text align center. And underneath that then we can see specifically for a H1 we have font size 2 EM and background color. H2, we font size 1.5 EM and a background color. And H3, font size 1.2 EM and a background color. We can see here we could still separate this out more and reuse our code because we have background colors put in with structure elements for the H1s like font size and background color. Let's go ahead and separate that out some more into reusable classes we can actually use on other things instead of writing more CSS. We can see here H123. Here we can see we've actually created a padding margin center class. We can use this on any elements, not just these H1s. We've set on the top left, we have padding 1em, margin 1em, and text align center. And if you look up at the very top, then you'll see we actually have that class padding margin center on our headings. And we can see we have a new class created called background color 1, 2, and 3. So not just the H1s, any class we apply these CSS classes to, any element, we can actually change the background color. So this is complete code reuse. We can reuse this code anywhere. And again, on the top, we can see, on the top left, we can see the BG color 1 class on the first header, BG color 2 on the second header, and BG color 3 on the third one. Any element we want now, we can style with those classes. They're reusable. On the bottom left, we can see much less font and text. We can see a lot of CSS has been cleared up. H1 font size 2 EM, H2 font size 1.5 EM, and H3 font size 1.2 EM. Here we can see, just as a simple test, we actually created an unordered list, and we've created absolutely no extra CSS. We've just reused our classes we have already made and separated out for our heading ones. We can see the UL class on top left is set to a background color 3. Then each list item is set to background color 1, 2, and 3. Complete reuse of code with no extra CSS for our list items. Hi, before we move on, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. Thank you. So now we're going to open Visual Studio Code and our project, and a browser window on the right to preview our project. It's going to go to our desktop and double-click on Visual Studio Code. Then we're going to go to the Explorer view and open folder. And mine is on the desktop, so I'm going to go Desktop, Reference Project, select Folder. And here we can see we have our HTML file. If we open the browser view, we can see the reference project folder and the index.html file we created. Now to see the browser window on the right, if you have the live server extension installed, you'll see Go Live button down here on the bottom. And if you haven't, you just have to go out to your desktop, open the folder, and click on the index.html file. So once you've clicked on that file, we're just going to click this Go Live button here. And that'll start up a new browser server window for us. So a handy shortcut for Windows to put something on the left and right is to press the Windows key and then right or left arrow and release the Windows key. Then select the one you want on the left or right. So I'll close this panel. So another handy shortcut for Windows is the zoom key. If you press CTRL, then the plus to zoom in and negative to zoom out. So we can see here we have our Windows browser on the right. So the only difference if we had to open this manually on the desktop and click on the file is if we make changes on the left in our code editor, you would have to click refresh on the right to see it. So let's have a look where we've already created some object-oriented CSS and reusable classes in our project. Let's go into our mystyle.css file. And if we scroll down past all our CSS, we can see here we've done it for the buttons. We can see the button structure has been removed. I just zoom in, CTRL and plus. This is the button structure, padding, text align, and border, all physical attributes. Then we can put different styles on that. We can see down here Then we have the skin of the button, which is the color, button nav, and a background color set. And we also have many reusable classes. We created these at the very start, the proper way. We have padding large here. We can apply this to any element that we want, which will put padding of 3 EM on left, right, top and bottom. And we've margin large top and bottom of 3 EMs, and margin smalls, and reusable class list reset, and a structure for the buttons. And also image responsive as a reusable class. If this was written with normal basic CSS, there would be many lines of CSS. You could have 5 lines for each H1. You could have a few lines for the colors, and then you mightn't even be able to actually change the colors to suit whatever you want to put them on next. And they'll also have too much size in the file size. This is a very compact way of creating your CSS, object-oriented CSS, and reusable classes. We can see here, we've put in a comment, reusable classes, and we have many reusable classes. We can create an element now on our web page and not actually have to create any CSS. We can go and check our CSS reusable classes and say, well, I can use this class that's already here, padding large. Maybe it has a list. I can just reuse this list reset class. No extra code needed. Maybe I put on a new button. I can use the basic structure for the button btn class. And then I want to set a different color for the button. I can come down here or create it anywhere in our CSS. And instead of btn nav, we could call it btn submit contact and have that a different color. Reusing CSS classes. How cool is that? So to get the files used in this example, the HTML reference project, just go to the GitHub link that's down in the description of this video. You can have a look at it here. So a GitHub repository is just a location on the internet hosted by a company called Git that most developers like to share or store their code in, either for their own use or to share with other developers. The repository on GitHub is just a folder used to store code or files, etc. Let's have a look at each folder. So when we're in the repository here, you can see the name of the repository there, actions along the top. You can see the main folder here, and there's a README file too. So if you want, you can just click onto the folders and see what's inside them and download the code from there. But to get all the code, you're going to go over here to the code button. We're going to click and download zip file. Once that's downloaded, go into your downloads folder. Then we need to extract it. So we're going to Windows, you're going to right click and extract all. Now let's just have a look at these files in vscode. So we're going to go to our desktop. We're going to open up Visual Studio Code. And now we're going to open the folder that we just extracted. Open folder on the left. And we're going to go to Downloads. And here we are. And you can see here on the Explorer view on the left, there's the folder we can click to expand. And here's the reference project folder. And here's the HTML file, so we click on that, and there's the code. You can use this for reference or to rebuild your project if something goes wrong. Hi, I hope you found this video helpful. If so, please like, share, comment and subscribe so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos in the Web Development for Beginners playlist. See you next time.